Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 1st edition of Beyond the Data. Today, we have great news. Yesterday, there were two decisions that affected Ohio and the federal mandates, both with federal contractors and the CMS mandate. And we have two lawyers on with us today, which is, I never believed I'd say this, but it's fantastic having two lawyers on today. So we've got Mitch Marczewski from Zanesville, and of course we have Warner Mendenhall from Akron. And at this point, I'm just going to sit back and let you guys tell us all about what has happened.
Mitch, do you want me to go first, or would you like to go first?
Yeah. I think you've got some bigger news, so I'll let you take it.
Well, I just yesterday, toward the end of the day, we were very excited to learn about a couple of different rulings. One came out of Kentucky, and it was particularly important for some of the work that we're doing. We do represent federal contractors and subcontractors, or employees of federal subcontractors and contractors. And unfortunately, those employees got nailed with these mandates. We're working at the Portsmouth gaseous diffusion plant in Southern Ohio. And when the ruling, it's really interesting what's happened today, because when the ruling came out yesterday, I really expected the companies to respond in what I would say would be appropriately to that. The court granted an injunction against the federal mandate. And to me, that would say to all the companies, well, stop mandating right now. I will say that of the companies at Portsmouth that we're dealing with four of them. One of them went ahead and granted most, if not all, religious exemptions, which we were happy to see. Another one, after the ruling, said that they're going to, wait and see what happens, and not enforce any mandate while they wait and see how the courts work this out. Two other companies, Floor BWXT is one of those, and a company called MCS, have decided, instead of following the federal mandate now, they're going to go ahead and continue to mandate, but they're actually going to created today, apparently, which I can't wait to see, a corporate policy requiring vaccination for nuclear materials workers. So, they are actually creating a corporate policy that's internal. Now, I think this raises a really interesting question, and it brings, to the fore something I think we all kind of know, but maybe haven't been confronted with so blatantly. And it is the fact that in our places of employment, we really are stripped from a lot of rights. And I'll give you one that I think everybody recognizes. In our place of employment, there's a lot of speech that we can't engage in, or we could be fired. But what they're doing now is expanding that corporate power, saying, well, now we can require a medical procedure if you want to work for this company. I think that is, I've been using this word all day, unprecedented, but everything about this is unprecedented. But it's unprecedented to me that a corporation would require a medical procedure for its employees. We've seen it in healthcare, obviously. We've seen, mandatory flu shots with exemptions in healthcare. So that is a place where that has been happening. But healthcare, of course, has some expertise at medicine. So arguably, they can say, well, it's based on our expertise, our experience, our studies, whatever you think of those. I have my opinions, but at least they can claim the expertise and the science. A corporation that's doing nuclear cleanup has no expertise in medicine in any way. So it's really beyond me how they can claim that these employees need to get a medical treatment, which they have no expertise in, and require that for employment. And then we know that this is so anti-science, to use Fauci's favorite word. The shot is not working to contain it. So any argument that, oh, we're doing this to keep everybody on the job makes no sense at all. There also is no recognition at the site for naturally acquired immunity, which we know that many, many people have, and I'm sure many of those employees have it. It's going to be very interesting to see where this where this all falls out. We know that employers have been able to do some things in terms of requiring these things for employment. This is just a step in a new direction. So it's going to be very interesting to me to see how the courts deal with this. One of the key things in our lawsuit is the request for religious exemptions from the mandate. So we do have a clear path the way the lawsuit is structured, in terms of the religious exemptions and the violations of Title VII. So we feel we have a very clear path on that. We have filed it as a class action. It does not have class status yet, but it is filed as a class action to protect all the employees who've asked for the religious exemptions. So we do, in advising other employees that are subject to these kind of private mandates now of these companies, I still think that religious exemption path is a very strong path. And we've been on the show with Catherine before where we've explained, and I know, Mitch, you can get into this too, religious exemption doesn't mean exactly religion. It's just a sincerely held belief. It may be a non-religious belief that comes into play there. The other thing that I was surprised at is I actually feel that, the companies themselves are victims. So you've got the federal government, Biden's mandate doing this, and then you've got a victim company. They are losing highly skilled, national security cleared, very specialized workers. I don't know how they can afford to lose tens, much less hundreds of workers in this environment. And I worry, I'm no expert in nuclear cleanup or nuclear processes or anything like that. But to me, it seems like, my God, don't we have a safety issue here that far exceeds the COVID-19 safety issue?
I know that Hanford has dealt with a lot of problems right now. Hanford is the largest nuclear cleanup site, and also where I happen to live for a long time. And they are basically shutting down a lot of the cleanup that they're doing. And it is quite hazardous there now. And I don't understand that they don't seem to care that they're shutting it down. I don't understand it.
I know we have problems at every single nuclear site in this country, including, Oak Ridge, I forget the one in Georgia, Hansford, Portsmouth. I mean, these are federal contractors and subcontractors. We are losing skilled people who keep us, those areas have problems anyway, but at least there's some people there who know what they're doing and are trying to keep the environment safe and trying to keep our communities safe. And for the companies not to recognize that they're victims in this process and, take advantage. I mean, I literally asked the attorneys today, I'm like, why don't you use this as cover? Save your employees, save your company. Let's keep the work going. You use this. This is great for you to get out of the victimization that you're experiencing by the executive order. So the other, if you want, I can move on a little bit. We can go bounce back and forth. The other one that came out yesterday was the stopping of the CMS mandate. And I see some of the comments here that Akron Children's is pushing forward with the mandate. And I think I heard today, I think somebody called us about the Cleveland Clinic pushing forward with the mandate. What they're doing is they're making an internal policy now and saying, well, this internal policy is going to apply. Same thing these other companies are doing at Portsmouth. But that decision came out of the Western District of Louisiana, and it said that CMS, that's the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, violated the notice and comment rules of the Administrative Procedure Act, meaning that when you institute a regulation, you have to get feedback from the nation. You have to allow people to comment and point out problems and point out consequences of a rule. That never happens. They violated that 100%. And then there's a limit on congressional authority to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and they have to stay within those limits. They've completely exceeded the limits. I think there's almost 10 million healthcare workers in this country that were affected by that. And to see hospitals just move forward anyway, Cleveland Clinic had held off on mandates up until this federal mandate. And now to hear today, I haven't verified this, but we did have a call that they're moving forward. I see more comments on here. And the fact that Children's Hospital in Akron is pushing forward the mandate.
Mercy, St. Vincent are as well. I've been told Mercy and St. Vincent are moving forward too.
Now here's Nationwide. They're saying Nationwide in the comments, and OSU. Oh my God. I know that we have estimated, based on the contacts we've had, that out of Ohio Health, OSU, and Cleveland Clinic, there are 31,000 healthcare workers in those three systems that want an exemption. And I got to tell you, I can't imagine the turmoil that this is creating. And I am hearing anecdotally about what's happening to patient care, what's happening in the emergency room. I'm hearing from people who unfortunately have had some very severe problems now because of the delays in treatment. Well, this is a self-created crisis. The healthcare networks have created their own crisis. And it's completely irresponsible.
So if I could stop you there, I mean, you had said something about the CMS mandate was stopped because there wasn't the comment period. Is that one of the
reasons? There were two reasons. It was we have something called the Administrative Procedures Act, and it requires comment. It requires input in any of these kind of mandates. Any mandate that CMS comes out with, it requires comment. That's normal. That's how we set this up. It's so that agencies just don't go off like they have done here in some crazy direction without having some understanding that comes from a diverse source of voices. We've got to have that input to have any kind of rationality in our administrative processes across the federal government. And then the second reason is that Congress set up CMS, gave it a range of authority, and it's supposed to stay within that range of authority. It's exceeded that authority according to this ruling. And I mean, the same thing has happened, on the federal contracting side. It's exceeding the authority of the president. The contracting one, I'm going to bounce back to that one. I hope this isn't too confusing. But the contracting one, the president has authority over procurement of goods and services. Procurement. How does a medical procedure fit into the authority over procurement? You just can't square the two. So that's the same excess authority on, going outside the bounds of the authority on the federal mandate as it is on the CMS mandate.
So going back to the CMS one, though, the reason I asked is because I do know that they do have a public comment period going on right now. I believe I have it up. It's I believe it's open until November 5th.
That's correct. They're backfilling. So they issued the mandate, then they set up a comment period, and they think that that's going to meet the requirement. That's not how this works.
Okay, that's kind of what I was asking for.
They're backfilling.
If they're if they're basing this injunction on that, are they going to weasel out of it and have it? I mean,
No.
I am not a legal person. I do not understand any of this. So, I'll ask some stupid questions.
I know. I ask away. I mean, these are hard questions for people to wrap their heads around. But, what I go back to in the initial grant of authority for Medicare and Medicaid services, that's back in the 60s now. Okay. And it says nothing, I'm going to read from this, nothing in the act shall be construed to exercise any supervision or control over the practice of medicine or the manner in which medical services are provided. Come on. They can't do this. The original law says they cannot do this. Nothing. They can't exercise supervision or control. I mean, and this is really key, and we've got to get back to this point. I'm going to keep going, Mitch. I'm sorry. I don't mean to take up all the time.
Well, if I could jump in here and ask the questions here as well, with these injunctions here for the layperson, go to the super basic of what does it mean on a practical level for us?
Well,
what cannot be done, and can it be taken back? Even before the court cases go through, or how does this process actually work?
That's actually a very good question. The injunction is put into place basically to stop a harm that the court sees that is going to occur. So it's there to stop a harm, and that's why it's done early in the case. It's to stop a harm. Part of that is you have to have somebody who's going to be injured, which they were able to show. You have to have a harm that needs to be stopped, and then you have to have a likelihood of success on the merits. That means the judges are making a preliminary ruling that there's a pretty good argument for the plaintiffs in these cases to win their case. So it's that likelihood of success on the merits. It's a preliminary ruling, but boy, I'll tell you, it is not likely that the judge is going to reverse this kind of initial ruling. And it puts that stay in place while they work through all the legal issues on both sides over however many years the case is going to go, because these things take forever to bubble through the courts, get up on appeal. I mean, this will be at the Supreme Court. This may move a little bit faster because it's such a, it's 10 million people. Like I said, 10 million people are affected by this just on the medical side. It's millions on the federal contractor side. I don't think people know this, but 1/5 of our workforce in this country is somehow connected to a federal contract or subcontract. 1/5 of our workforce is affected. That, I don't know what our workforce numbers are right now, but my guess is that's around 30, 40 million. Maybe Mitch. That's a lot of people. So, adding that up, I mean, we're talking tens of millions of people. This is a major disruption to our economy. This is a major disruption to these millions of people's lives. We already know what's happening to some extent. And by September, I saw some figures. 4.5 million people had quit their jobs. A lot of them over the mandates. You can tell. I'm literally do not understand the idiocy of this situation. I literally don't understand it. It's destroying our healthcare system in Ohio. I can't imagine what it's doing in other states. It's literally impacting our economy in a way that I've never seen, would never expect. No one in their right mind would do this. It is the most it's political malpractice starting there. I mean, why somebody advised Biden to do this? It's complete political malpractice. He's destroying the chances of the Democratic Party and certainly in next year's elections. Any advisor in their right mind with any understanding of the economy knows, hey, it's the economy, stupid. Where did we hear that before?
Well, that also requires the elections being fair.
It's the economy, stupid. That's how you win elections. That's how you keep this nation strong. You know, and you're destroying lives. I'm hearing from people whose lives are being turned upside down every day over this. Whether it's from vaccine injury, shot injury, I should say. I don't want to call that a vaccine. And that's another argument I want to have at some point. But I want to have the argument. This is the argument I want to have, Mitch. This is a genetic therapy. And we have got to get the courts to understand that Jacobson case no longer is effective. It has nothing to do with this. That was not a genetic therapy. That was a neutralizing vaccine. That's very different. Neutralizing immunity is very different from what this thing is doing. It's not doing neutralizing immunity. So the courts have got to be made to understand that. I will say this, Peter McCullough, who really helped us and provided an affidavit for one of our cases, was actually instrumental in the Louisiana case. He provided an affidavit there as well. So I thank God for doctors who know what they're talking about and are stepping up and are willing to put their careers on the line. And I believe Peter McCullough has been stripped of some of his positions, stripped of some of his jobs. I know other doctors have. I thank God for somebody like that. He was so gracious with us, helping us literally for free on one of the cases, provided an affidavit. And with everything he's got going on, I don't even know how he fit us in there. But he was instrumental in this Louisiana case.
Yeah. So, I might add, I think actually, in spite of all this, I see many reasons to be very optimistic. And I tell this to people because.
Thank you.
We really do.
I don't mean to be all doom and gloom.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, not necessarily.
I'll be optimistic in a minute. I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah. No, but I mean, when we take these things to court, we do very well. I mean, we have the injunction up in New York State. Governor Kathy Hochul had the mandate for healthcare workers, and she said, we're not going to allow religious exemptions. The federal district court disagreed with her, put an order in. She appealed it to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Second Circuit agreed with the trial court that she has to allow for religious exemptions. Then we had a similar case in, Western Michigan University up there with the athletes. They wanted to have vaccinations, but hey, no religious exemptions. The district court disagreed, put a temporary injunction in place. They appealed it to the Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati, and the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals agreed that you have to have exemptions. So we do win these things. So there is reasons to be optimistic. We don't see these on the news, obviously, but really good things are happening. We do win these things. And I envision that in the long term, we are going to prevail on this. I really do, because the track record of the Biden administration right now is not good. I would be very concerned if I was the attorney for them. I'd say, look, boss, we've got to change direction here, because this is not working. The public doesn't like it for sure. We're ruining the economy, and we're not even winning in court. Sure, we can blast out executive orders all day long because possession is 9/10 of the law. But once you get about 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 of these things that don't go your way, then the juggernaut begins to turn in the other direction in favor of the good people of the world, the people that want medical freedom. So thankfully, there are reasons to be optimistic. And some of these cases, like, for example, and Warner knows this, you've got to be careful what you read into it. I got an email today where the Supreme Court did not take the case out of Maine. Well, that's a completely different thing, because there was not an injunction in place, and the plaintiffs were asking the Supreme Court to put an injunction in place, which is a really unusual thing. And the U.S. Supreme Court just was not ready for that. It has nothing to do that they didn't believe the merits of the Maine case was good or bad. It had to do with the injunction itself and them setting precedents from doing injunctions from the Supreme Court bench. So although some of these are easy to read from a layperson's point of view and easy to understand, some of them are not. You just have to dig into them a little more closely. So even notwithstanding the Maine case, which I think will prevail on that as well. I'm very optimistic for the future, at least on the mandatory vaccination thing. I know there's other issues that are being litigated, but that's the key one there. If we can win that one long term, I think they all fall like dominoes.
You know, Mitch, I'm going to get off the gloom and doom here for a minute. One of the things that is remarkable is our Article 3 courts. The fact that we have this check and balance between the executive, the legislature, and the courts, and that we have somewhere to go, however imperfect it is, we have somewhere to go. This is a very unique process. I don't think people understand that. Our country and the genius of some of these systems, it's paying off right now. So the Article 3 courts and the system of federalism, where our states have this independent domain, is critical. And I thank God we have it. We're seeing it at work. It's not perfect, but just a little bit of a praise for our nation. Our country has got some good bones about it. We have to strengthen them, and we're trying to do that. But it has some good bones that seem to be working to correct this horrendous overreach by the executive. So I just, on a positive note, what bothers me though? I mean, I'm going back to the doom and gloom. The number of people who've been injured before we get the response. Our civic antibodies are working, but they're a little bit slow. So maybe going forward, they're going to be a little bit faster. We're going to get immunized to this junk coming out of the federal government. Maybe we'll respond a little faster.
So to interject here, though, I mean, yes. So when I look at everything that these people have been doing, whoever they are, who are quite determined to make everyone be vaccinated for whatever reasons they have, that's clearly their only goal is universal vaccination. And if we look at that being their goal, I mean, I look at everything that they're doing in this country and around the world is basically trying to throw as much crap at the wall as they can and seeing what sticks and then going with that. And when you were just talking there, I was just thinking about it. Yeah, we have the separation of powers, which is fantastic. It's working slowly, but it is working in terms of saying, oh, no, the president can't do this, and which is great. But then I think about the House Bill 218 that is right now going through the Ohio legislature. And, well, where is that one coming from? We're saying, okay, the federal government can't do it. So we get these court cases out there saying the federal government can't do it. That's left to the states. And then we have the states come in now with the authority given to them by those wins for us. Okay, now the states can do it. That's their prerogative to do that. And then the states go and do stuff like House Bill 218, which gives the businesses the express authority to do this. So are we exchanging one problem for another? Are we basically marching down this path where, okay, yeah, the federal government can't do it. Well, the states can say what's legal, and now the states are saying, well, businesses can do it, and then we're left helpless. I mean, how do we then fight the whole business of businesses being able to do it, especially when we have these bills going through right now when we're talking about the federal mandates? We're distracted, and we're not looking at this particular bill, which is going to expressly allow them to, as interestingly enough, you talked about genetic immune therapy, and that's explicitly mentioned that any vaccine, drug, biological product, or genetic immune therapy can be mandated by any business for any reason, and they don't have to justify it. So, I mean, I'm kind of dark little rain cloud here, but I mean, I want to look beyond what they're doing to us now and what comes next. And do you guys have any kind of hopefulness here of ways that we can fight what's coming next?
You want to go, Mitch?
Well, I do. Let me just throw this in. Montana has the best legislation on this. It's the only state, and the bill is only 1 page long, and it's passed. Vaccination status is a protected class, and that means a lot to Warren, because we know that that's a really special thing in the law, is being in a protected class. Race, religion, national origin, color. That means the standard is strict scrutiny, that if they want to make vaccination mandatory, at least in Montana, they've got to show that it achieves a compelling governmental interest by using the least restrictive means. So, and I've talked to my state representative about this, that's what we need is have protected class. Now, whether it would get through or not, and a lot of Bill 248, and not to go down that bunny trail, but a lot of Bill 248 would have produced that in an indirect way. But to answer the question very quickly, like on the test in law school, vaccination status needs to be a protected class.
Well, we actually do. What the crazy part is I mean, I had State Senator Andy Brenner on a few days back, and he actually has had a bill sitting in the Senate since, I think, early summertime, Senate Bill 169, that's actually stuck in the exact same committee as 218 is. That it's a 3-page bill, and most of it is definitional, and it's essentially that it's you're don't ask, don't tell, essentially, about vaccination, and that you cannot discriminate. And it's just like, it is so insanely frustrating where we have a short, sweet bill that's there. It's been there. We don't talk about it. Instead, we're talking about the rights of businesses to, using absolutely no justification, be able to mandate whatever they want. I was thinking about it. They could mandate under that bill that everybody has to take PrEP for preventing HIV. There's nothing in that bill that says that a business can't do that. And it's just mind blowing to me. And I am concerned that we're looking at these federal mandates and happy about the good judgments coming down, but then not seeing the lower level things that I have this, deep, dark feeling that they're going to come back and bite us. And if they do, what can we do? Is there a way to stop these things outside of the legislature actually passing something good and not something actively bad like this?
Well, I'll take that a little bit. I mean, our Ohio Constitution does have, we have constitutional rights under our Ohio Constitution. So if a bill comes through that is unconstitutional under Ohio's Constitution, we can use our own Constitution to do that. And I do want to say, about 218, and I can't say that I, read through every single line of the bill, but I did read a lot of it. And it does seem like a jumbled mess. And I don't understand. Some of it's hard to even parse out what it's going to ultimately mean. But I don't understand the ignorance of the legislature on this, how they could get this so wrong in some of the wording that's in that bill. And then the other thing that I don't understand is the Chamber of Commerce supporting this type of legislation. I mean, they are abdicating any responsible position, I think, as in terms of toward their employees and toward business in this state. And the Chamber of Commerce has been unhelpful in this process. And I, my brothers have small businesses. I know a lot of small businessmen. That Chamber of Commerce is not representing small business, because I know the small business people do not like mandates. They want to be free to operate. They just want to be free. And, the small businesses, they are not for this. So the Chamber of Commerce is not representing them. The only thing I can think the Chamber is representing at this point is big corporations, big, hospitals, and that's about it. They've lost their way, and they are not representing what most of us know. Most of us are still employed by smaller businesses, which have been damaged horribly by this whole process. But, that's who we need to be going to the legislature That's who the legislature needs to be protecting. And we have got to get a handle on whatever the chamber's doing, because they're off the charts, off the rails.
That was the other thing where I was trying to figure out that bill is such a hot mess, because on the one hand, it's got such a beautiful anti-vaccine passport aspect to it, saying you cannot, just full stop and done, beautiful, wonderful. But at the same time, the businesses can mandate anything on their employees. And one of the things when I pressed about an example for what possible argument could businesses have that this is good, what I got back was, well, the companies that are in Ohio that are entertainment-based companies, well, they're concerned because Broadway and entertainment venues entertainment people wouldn't want to come to Ohio if we don't have these laws in place, which just makes absolutely zero sense, because those places want to have the customers be vaccinated or tested or whatever, and not just the employees. So how is that an argument that this is good? And I mean, for like the last week, I'm like, why would anybody want this? And I came to the exact same conclusion. It's big businesses who already have the administrative structure and the lawyers already lined up, and they're just going to crush all the small businesses, because I can't even comprehend why any small business, would want anything to do with the kind of paperwork that would be necessary to implement any of this stuff.
I call it the big small businesses. That's the term I use. The big small businesses, the ones we're not talking. I mean, if you're talking 5 employees, 10 employees, that's a super small business or a micro business. But I think the small business definition, according to the SBA, is something like if you got under 500 employees. To me, that's a big small business, and their interests are much different than the mom and pop diner that has 8 employees, and yet they like to claim that they represent the mom and pop diner with 8 employees, and they don't. A company with 200 and 300 and 400 employees has much different political interests than a mom and pop diner, or a plumber, that has a couple guys and a couple of trucks on the road. So that somewhat explains the Ohio Chamber of Commerce position. They're not going to look out for the interests of those really small businesses. So I call it, they represent the big small businesses.
I'm going to give an example and name a name. I cannot believe Smucker's Corporation, what they're doing down in Orville. I am astounded that company is not backing down off the mandate. I think that company, I mean, I had heard and they've been, I've lived in this area for all my life. And, I always heard that they were a very good company to work for. They were very respectful of their employees. And they have had a very successful run. I hate to tell Smucker's this, but Smucker's is going to lose their way if they go forward with this. They're going to create so much ill will in the community. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop buying Smucker's. I'm looking for other jams and jellies and peanut butters and coffee or whatever else they provide, because they are being heartless in terms of dealing with their employees. And I know, Mitch, you've been to Orville, you've talked to hundreds of people out there, and we have been on the phone with Smucker's employees for the last several months around issues with that plant, both at the administrative level and at the plant level, and they're going to lose a lot of good people that have helped to build that company, that have dedicated their lives to working for that company over this stupidity. So, I want to go back to one thing, just since I have it up on my screen. Our Constitution, Ohio's Constitution, Section 1, Article 1, provides us the right to refuse medical treatment, to protect the liberties of personal security, bodily integrity, and autonomy. That comes directly from a case called the Steele case back in 2000. It says liberty interests are infringed when a person is medicated against his or her wishes. This intrusion clearly compromises one's liberty interests in personal security, bodily integrity, and autonomy. That's our case law. That's our Constitution. We can plant that flag and deal with some of the craziness that I hope doesn't come out of the legislature. But we have some good case law that backs this up, and we will use it if the legislature passes an unconstitutional law.
Okay, that was actually going to be my question of okay, if they do like absolutely lose their minds, which I don't know what's wrong with our legislators. I just don't.
Well, what this does, like Mitch said earlier, I mean, this kind of case law puts this at there has to be a compelling government interest. If they can show there's a compelling government interest, that's number one, and then two, Mitch, least restrictive methodology. They have to show that. They're not going to be able to do it with a genetic therapy that doesn't work and doesn't have neutralizing immunity. And there's a lot of, they have to be least restrictive.
Could that be what they're doing there, is that because what they're doing is they're not restricting the businesses, and they're going to try and do a run around because I'm trying to think like a lawyer, and I don't know, but it's the least restrictive to the businesses. The businesses can do it. Does the Constitution actually prevent the businesses from doing it to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it's going to come down to your sincerely held beliefs, but that's going to get you coverage. We have Ohio civil rights, just like we have federal civil rights. That's what's going to get you coverage, is your beliefs. They don't have to be just a religion, it's just sincerely held beliefs. They have to, what do you think, Mitch? I'm going to throw it to you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we're talking about sincerely held religious beliefs, that's a broad definition, much broader than most people think. It includes non-theistic beliefs, as long as those beliefs address questions of morality, ethics, and what's right and wrong. And if they're sincerely held, that qualifies as a religion. I get it that out in normal society, just kind of the Webster's dictionary sitting on the shelf, that would not qualify as a religion. But under the law, it does. And you could be the only person that believes it that particular way, and it doesn't matter. You don't need to have anybody, not one person in the whole planet has to agree with you, as long as it's sincerely held to you. And that's it. That's the long and the short of it. And there are things that are complicated in the law, like the strict scrutiny, compelling government interests, that are harder to argue, require much more work to lay the groundwork for. But thankfully, this is one concept that is not a convoluted concept. It's just extremely simple. You don't have to agree with all the tenets of the particular religious belief either. Again, as long as you're holding that sincerely, that's the only issue. And I often do a little bit of play acting when I teach my seminars. I just would say, I would get my client on the stand and I would stipulate, and that means agree, that my client has an extremely unreasonable and irrational religion. Your Honor, we'll just stipulate to that right now. However, that's not what we're here for today, Your Honor. We're here to determine how sincerely my client believes that irrational religion. And that's it. That is the long and the short of it.
So the religious, I remember hearing as well that the religious stuff is coming from a federal level, and you guys are saying that that religious exemptions don't need to be codified in law in any way, shape, or form, because they will apply no matter what. At what level? At state level? At business
15
level?
or more employees. 15 or more employees for companies. At least I'm talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII. The religious exemptions under that applies to all companies in the United States that have 15 or more employees, and federal bureaucracies, state agencies. It applies. Hospitals, factories, CMS mandate or no CMS mandate, OSHA, new OSHA regulations or no OSHA regulations. A lot of people, and understandably so, they kind of go for the head fake, and they think, well, but it's an OSHA thing. It has nothing to do with it. Oh, but it's a CMS thing. It has nothing to do with it. You still have those Title VII protections, religion, and there's other things under Title VII, but the religious one is the one that is kind of the prize here. And there's case law going back for decades on that. So that's not even new law. The only thing new is the vaccine template or overlay over it. That's what's new.
But the one problem with the religious exemptions, though, is the Title VII doesn't protect against discrimination, obviously, because all these businesses are exactly doing that. They are discriminating against people who are exercising their religious rights to whatever. I mean, there's been quite a few
disobeying the law. Yeah, I mean, they're disobeying the law.
Yeah, it does protect.
Period.
It does protect. I mean, the problem is that we're facing right now is we're going to have so many thousands of lawsuits under Title VII, even maybe under Ohio Constitution. I mean, thousands and thousands of people are having their rights injured right now, and but it is protective. I mean, that's the answer. These companies are violating the law, and there is a way to vindicate yourself in court. The problem that we're going to have, it's so many thousands of people, I'm sure, and let's talk about that for a minute, what people can do, because I'm dealing with people who are getting fired today. And I'm going to tell you what we're advising them to do. First of all, file with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Get your complaint in. They have violated the law. If you've requested a religious exemption, they have to go through a reasonable accommodation process. They have to have a discussion, an interactive process. They're simply not doing that. It might be an email or a letter, but it's nothing interactive. There's no problem solving going on in that process whatsoever. So file your OCRC, Ohio Civil Rights Commission, or Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaints. That the EEOC, I know, has an online portal that you can file the complaint online. The second thing is, when you're fired, go get your unemployment filed for. The companies are trying to say that it's a voluntary separation because you didn't take the jab. No, file that. We got to fight these battles at every level that we can. Go through that unemployment administrative process. Fight that battle. And you ultimately have a right, even in the unemployment process, to go to common pleas court with it if you want to. I mean, I know the backlogs are going to be horrendous, but let's get this moving. I mean, get your unemployment filed, get your EEOC filed, set yourself up, to get a complaint filed later. You have to file with the EEOC within 6 months. You have longer time under the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. I believe that's up to 2 years. But we've got to take these steps. If you win the case, you're going to get your back pay back. You might get reinstated. You might get what's called front pay, which is future pay if you're not reinstated. So there are damages that you can recover. Under the federal statute, your attorney fees can get reimbursed or paid for. We have to let these companies know that we're going to ratchet up the pressure. They're going to have endless litigation. I'm sure the large law firms are going to be very happy with Mitch and I, because they're going to make billions of dollars on all this. But do those things. Let's get that litigation rolling. Don't let them off the hook. The other thing that we're advising, there are many union employees. File the grievances. Get them in there. One of the problems that we see in some of the unions is some of the unions are fine with the mandate, apparently. So what? File the grievance. Make the union do its job for you. Force that employer to show that it had just cause to fire you over this. And then, I mean, in a more complex way, you can file a complaint against the union. If they're not representing you, you can take them as well to the Labor Department and file a complaint against your union for failure to represent. So I would say those are a couple of steps. Are there any that you would like to add to that, Mitch? I don't want to.
No, I think you covered them. I don't know. There might be and I haven't looked into it, possibly through the U.S. Department of Labor.
Right.
I just basically tell people, I mean, and if you don't have a lot of money, make a lot of noise. and just be a burr under their saddle and get with your friends and all file them. I mean, you can make up for lack of money to hire attorneys by just rattling their cage and not giving up and getting lots of people to do the same thing, frankly. So let's just overload the system. I mean, keep in mind, they don't care about you. They could care less if you make your car payment. They could care less if your kid has to drop out of football because you don't have a job and can't pay the football fees. They do not care about you. Once you get that in your head, with all due respect to the people that are hurting and on the raw end of this, once you really get that into your head and your heart, you will fight like a lion and like a tiger. You will, because that's what it's going to take. They're not going away. And like Catherine often says, nobody's coming to save us. The Lone Ranger's not coming. It ain't happening. It's going to be up to us to fight in the trenches. Yeah, we might have a sidearm and a bayonet and one clip, but we're going to use it. And if there's enough of us, which I know that there is, there's no question there's enough of us here. And some are going to have the money to sue, where they're going to be able to hire me, hire Warren, hire somebody else. Some of you guys are going to get together and you're going to throw in $5,000 a piece, 5 or 10 of you, and you're going to call me or Warren and say, hey, we got 20 grand here, 30 grand, 40 grand. We want to get a class action going. I guarantee you, if I get a phone call like that, you will get a class action going. I will find somebody, me and Warren will get together and we will get something going for you. But I'll tell you, these things are not cheap, and it's not because me and Warren make them expensive. An average expert is $5,000. I mean, I've hired experts. I've hired psychologists and different types of experts, you know, for them to fly in from where they are to do a report, do depositions, show up to do testimony. It's expensive, and there's no way around that. It just can't be done. But again, it's your job. You know, I have a job. It's your job. So you need to care about your job and your situation actually more than I care about it. I care about it, but you need to care about it more. And you need to be I'll be in the corner coaching you, but you've got to be in the ring slugging away, and I'll encourage you and help you. But I do get a lot of calls in here, and you know, with all due respect, people often think just because they're wrong, then that's it. It's like over. Like, oh, okay, we hang up the phone and it's done. There's no shortage of wrongdoing. There is absolutely no shortage of it. It's day in and day out. What there's a shortage of is fighters, number one, frankly, just people that are just gritting it out, fighting it. And then people that are able to either put up some of their own money or get their friends together and all pitch in $1,000 a piece or $2,500 a piece. Borrow it from your retirement if you have to, because if we don't win this battle in this generation, our kids and grands, they're not going to have an opportunity at all, not at all, to fight it. The door is closing on this. And the judiciary and the courts are the only reasonably functioning part of government that we have right now. The executive branch is completely out of hand. Even in the state of Ohio, it's completely out of hand. Especially at the national level, it's completely out of control, out of hand. The president could be sitting down right now dictating another executive order that you'll read about tomorrow morning. And here we are stamping out fires all the time. The legislature, yeah, they respond to us sometimes. Sometimes they do. And I'm not saying we shouldn't lobby them, but I don't think that's where the heavy lifting is going to get done. It's going to get done in the courts. I know it's going to get done in the courts. There's no question about that. That's the only place you can go where most of the time you have reasonable people, you have rational people, you have the ability to put on a case, put on testimony. If it takes you a month to do it, to get all your experts in there and to have 35 employees testify, well, then you're going to have a month or 2 months or a year to do it. And you're going to have a judge that's fair in almost all the cases. And if you want a jury, you'll get a jury. So 12 people from, say, the Smuckers area from Wayne County, I can't wait to see some of these things go to jury trial when they've got ex-Smuckers employers on the jury, a nurse, a truck driver, a retired person, an unemployed person, a forklift operator. I'll tell you what, those Smuckers people that run that place are going to be so sorry that they poke those people in the eye. And that's what they're doing. They are literally poking these people in the eye. I'm not talking about an accidental elbow when you're going for the basket trying to make a three-pointer. I'm talking about a deliberate poke in the eye where they want to make you angry. We're going to show you. And you know what? They are making them angry. and we'll see who shows who to something at some point. Totally unnecessary, totally uncalled for, but we really have to put our money where our mouth is. There's no shortage of cases. I've got a dozen emails come in since I've just been sitting here talking to you guys, and of all kinds of terrible injustices going on. I know, tell me about it, but you got to get your friends together or do something. I'll hire another paralegal if necessary. No problem. But we have to have the money to fund these things on the front end. Now, it's true, EEOC, you can get your attorney fees, but that's 2 years later. I don't have the money to fund experts for 2 years and do depositions of the company president and the whole HR department for 2 years. You know, I'm going to have $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in the case. And then maybe if we win the case, we get paid and everybody gets reimbursed 2 years from now. So these are the realities of litigation, and I'll take some of the blame for not explaining this perhaps as well as I should to people that call, and maybe even on interviews like this and even on places where I go speak. I'll take the blame for that. We kind of, you know, sometimes I make it sound as all you need is to be right and that's it. It's over. We hang up the phone and you're back on your job and the employer's going to say, yeah, sorry. It doesn't work that way. Some of these people are they're hard-headed and hard-hearted at the same time. They have plenty of money for lawyers, and they're just taking an attitude they're not going to be pushed around. So we have to understand that's the type of opponent that we have. It's like getting out in a restaurant in downtown Columbus and you want to take a shortcut through an alley, you get to the car, and there's a bunch of mean people in there that don't want you to get to the car. You didn't choose the confrontation, but there it is. So that's kind of where we're at on these things. There's no shortage of cases, no shortage of plaintiffs, but there's a shortage of money to fund them. And to be very frank, and I don't want to disparage anybody, it really should be primarily the people who are benefiting the most from it, which is the people whose job is being saved by filing that lawsuit. That's really, those are the ones that should really be putting it up and say, hey, I called 5 of my friends. We're all going to kick in $2,500 a piece. We got some money here. What can you do for us? That will get things done.
The other thing is happening. Oh, I'm getting it for some reason, Catherine. Is that better?
Yeah, now you're better.
Okay. The other thing that is happening, I mean, there are so many things happening, and I'm more on the hopeful side here. And Mitch brought up a great point. This is going to take everybody. And we have been working and been in touch with Ohio Stands Up and Jason Hedges there. And, they have helped people. So Ohio Stands Up is raising funds that they then provide to help support some of the cases that you're seeing filed. And that's an important process because everyone needs to give something to help this go. We need as many cases. We've got to get cases filed throughout the state. We've got to get rulings. We're going to lose some. We're going to win some. Some are going to be mixed. But those rulings eventually will build a body of case law that is going to protect our freedom. And this is the work we're doing right now. We're laying a foundation in this unprecedented new area of behavior that we've got with our governments and companies. And we've got to fight through this and see what's going to work, what's not going to work, and build that foundation. So, everybody can help. Everybody who understands what's at stake here, which I think is the basic fundamental structure of our country. That is what's at stake here, I believe. So we can do that. We can work together. We can work through groups like Ohio Stands Up and get this job done. Mitch has been helping hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people, it's just great that attorneys like Mitch are coming forward and are prepared to do the work. We are hearing from more and more of them as time goes by. I'm trying to build a little database here of attorneys around the state who are willing to help. I'm going to tell the audience this too. We're getting some help from some surprising locations. Some people are having to help us on the sly a little bit. We greatly appreciate those attorneys who they cannot be named, but they are certainly just giving us a little bit of backup when we need it, and trying to do a small part. So if everybody who believes in the core structures of our country does a small part, we're going to be a massive, massive force. And we're going to be a massive, not just legal force, we're going to be a massive political force, a massive social force, every which way. The other thing, I want to give some other kind of good things that are happening out there. I've been in touch with people who are now trying to set up hospitals. So it's all these wonderful professionals who are leaving their work or going to get fired or whatever it is. They're coming together and trying to figure out how to set up small surgical centers and hospitals. I wish I had the name of the one. There's one in Missouri I was just made aware of, and there's one coming together in Texas. People are also coming together to form their own travel companies. We've got, Freedom Travel Alliance. I think they have 4 airplanes now. And they are literally they've done a couple of rescue missions to Europe to get people out of Europe who couldn't leave because they didn't have a vaccination to get on a plane. I mean, we cannot, I hear the horror stories coming out of Australia and Europe, and we have one of our employees was over in Austria, which I think everybody knows there's problems over there right now. My God, if that comes to that is just the end of freedom in these locations. We cannot let that happen here. And the fact that we're running, that a company, Freedom Travel Alliance, is running rescue operations. I mean, what the hell? Thank God they're there. Thank God they're doing it. But it shows how extreme this is getting. Your freedoms are really at risk. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And we do have some fine people that are setting up their own clinics. I do know that a lady by the name of Pam Popper in Columbus every Monday night does a conference call with people that are in healthcare that want to get out of that corrupt system. And it is corrupt. It just is. It's been corrupt for a long time. We're now just seeing how corrupt it is. It's been hollowed out. And it's just a terrible, terrible system. And but she helps people get out of that system and get setting up their own clinics with people that practice medicine the way it should be practiced. The Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm, and then do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If you live your life by those 2 things, this would be a great world.
I want to go at that a little bit. I know a little bit about the healthcare systems. As people may know, we do Medicare and Medicaid fraud cases. What I have seen in the course of my lifetime, of course, is that we've gone from the practicing doctor who had the office and saw patients and had complete independence of decision-making, treatment, and everything. That was the majority at one point. That was the majority of medicine that we dealt with. There were very few that were part of these big corporate systems. And then, as time developed with the HMOs and then with the consolidation under Obamacare, we've got these huge systems forming. I mean, you've seen Cleveland Clinic. It's an octopus. It's spreading out into every community, in the world. I mean, they have international locations. But what happens with those huge systems is that the doctors who were practicing in a small practice or independently are offered such incredible incentives to come in to the big system, and they're paid so well that it's an offer they can't refuse. You're making hundreds and hundreds of thousands or millions a year practicing medicine, but you give up your soul for that in that trade. And what they have given up is independence of decision making, the Hippocratic Oath. They are merely becoming, unfortunately, no longer scientists like they used to be, people who tested hypotheses with patients, that dealt very individually and very humanly with people, to now technicians who are given a protocol from on high that dribbles down, and then they have to follow that protocol, and they're disciplined, if they go outside of those protocols. Now, those protocols, there's an old book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions that talks about, that the standard practice is always under challenge. That's how science works. These protocols should always be under challenge, always being tested, because it's very simple to me to imagine what's going on. If we just think back 100 years ago, would you want medicine from 100 years ago right now? Probably not. We'd want the benefits of what we've learned since. But 100 years hence, we're going to look back at this as a barbaric time in medicine. So all we have to do, we need to play that imagination game. Look back 100 years ago, it's pretty rough. Look forward 100 years ago, this is barbaric what we're doing here. So the way out of the barbarism is to have truly scientific method where we're questioning, we're testing, we're taking the individual doctor's experience about what's working, and that filters up instead of it being what we see now, totally suppressed and denied, in fact, when we know doctors are treating patients very successfully who have COVID-19 and really reducing death rates. But they're not. Those treatments are not mandated by CMS. Instead, we've got, what have we got? I'm trying to think of the remdesivir. Remdesivir, which doesn't work at all, is the approved treatment for COVID.
Well, and it's bonus structure. I mean, it's actively killing people, and there's a 20% bonus if you have a COVID positive patient and you give them remdesivir. That's a bonus on top of normal reimbursement. So this is a sick system that's going on with remdesivir.
It's a corruption bonus.
What's the other one that's approved? Is it dexamethasone? Is that the other one that's approved? There's two approved, I know. I think
there was a second one, but it only got the bonus if you used it in conjunction with remdesivir.
Oh man,
I think there was, or maybe there was Regeneron as well. But of course, Regeneron, as far as I understand, is essentially not available anywhere anymore.
Regardless, we know there are serious problems with what has been classed as the appropriate protocol treatment for this illness. And we also know that there are all these other treatments that are bubbling up, but are not being examined fairly. And we're not having a debate about them. The debate has been suppressed. I mean, that's just horrible. And that's happened through our social media companies and everything else. But, again, I mean, the word is getting out thanks to you, Catherine.
That's why I'm here.
All the innovators out there who are figuring out how to communicate through Telegram. I was on something, I think it's called Hangouts today. I'd never been on before. And, so people are really trying to figure out a way to communicate, and the truth will out. It's coming. So I love the innovation that's happening. I hate the suppression that's happening. But the innovation that it's spurring is probably important. It's one of the antibody reactions to this illness of this anti-democratic illness that we're facing.
It's also very exhausting, I've got to say. I'm a little tired of having to reconstruct. I mean, it's just like, oh, not again.
So how long have we been on? We've been on for over an hour here, Catherine. So.
Yes, as always. One thing I did want to say before we end here, because you've got to get to all of the people who are calling you and can't get through, is so much of what they're doing here. I mean, when you guys are talking and you're talking about the court cases, and yes, we are absolutely 100% in the right, and it will come out, it will be justified, all those things, but it's going to take time. And so much of what's going on and what they're doing is it's designed to demoralize us. It is designed to scare us into compliance so that we do what they tell us to do. And once we do that, then we're like, oh, we've really screwed it up. We did something stupid. And then we're not going to want to stand up and fight. It's a lot harder to do that. Once you've caved, then it's a lot harder to find the strength to stand up again. And that's all they're doing is just trying to find ways to demoralize us, even to the point of what they do with me, where, you know, they shut down these groups that I had over 10,000 people, and it was, you know, lots of scientific discussion and rationality and all this stuff, and they wipe it off, and everybody's left going, okay, now we to demoralize us, to separate, to demoralize. And I think it is so important that people don't turn off. I mean, this sucks doing this. I am so tired. I don't sleep. I'm up until like 4 or 5 in the morning. I don't want to do anything with COVID anymore. But at the same time, if we stop, if we turn away, if we ignore it, it'll be too late to stop it. And so, as Mitch was saying there, you got to go out, you got to do those fights. And I'm hoping, Mitch, that you write some really beautiful tutorials on how to do that, because your tutorials on the religious exemptions are fantastic to pass out. But yeah, just we need that help from you. What do we do as individuals without you attorneys? And then we need to
well, I mean, real quick, and this might be preaching to the choir, join a freedom group of some kind. I've met some of the greatest people in the last 2 or 3 months doing these seminars just all over Ohio, people that I should have been hanging out with the whole time, actually. So you're going to want to join a freedom group, and you're going to want to try to work your way out of these corrupt systems that we're in. Right now, obviously, the main topic is this corrupt medical system. Find ways out of it. If you're working in it, try to find because even if you have your exemption, they're still coming after you. Remember, they don't like you. They don't like you. When you get up in the morning, look in the mirror and say they don't like me, because they don't. Because you've stood up to them, you've asked for an exemption, or you've notified them of the exemption that you own, and they're not happy about that. They really just wanted you to get the vaccine and just go back to your nurse's station. That's what they really, really wanted you to do. They don't like you. So yeah, you've got your job for now. It'll be something else. So start to work your way, find your ways out of this corrupt system, and get into systems that are not corrupt, where the people are honest, where the people actually want people to get well, where there's no bonuses, because we're going to need good people in those systems. And then the systems that the good people are leaving, and I know this isn't going to happen overnight, but this is long term, then those ones will just implode on themselves, because nobody's going to go there. They're just going to go to the place where they get well, and get well quickly, and probably get well at a much lower cost and less hassle to boot. Because necessity is the mother of invention. And as we're fighting these battles and going through these difficult times, that's when the creative human spirit is at its best. And I'm very excited about the ideas that are going to be coming out over the next 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. And for some of you out there, this might sound like almost heresy, but for not all, you're going to look back and say, you know what? Them booting me out of that hospital was the best thing that happened to me in my whole life. Because now look where I'm at. I'm where I'm appreciated. I'm loved. They listen to me. They care about people. And if they didn't boot me out of there, I would still be in that ugly place. And I know that's not going to be true for all of you, but I guarantee you there's going to be some of you that you're going to look back and say, man, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. So yeah, we need to work our way out of the system, join the freedom groups, get together with people. It's great on Zoom and on the Facebook and so forth, but get together in person. Meet up for dinner, meet up for coffee, meet up for cookouts, meet up for rallies, because there's never been a rally that I've gone to and I've walked away and I was not energized. I might be tired as could be going to that rally, but when I left, I had more energy than when I went in. There's just a magic about being among people that are like-minded. So yeah, there's lots of things we can do. The movement is still growing, by the way. We have not peaked at all. There are still people that are getting on board for the first time. That's good news, because this thing is getting bigger like a snowball going downhill. And the people on the other side, they don't know what to do with us. They are absolutely biting their fingernails over the response and the pushback that they're getting. They figured we'd roll over by now. They figured this is going to be a done deal. They're pushing their calendar out, way out there now, as far as when they're going to have us under their thumb. So we're giving them big time headaches, and that's good. So y'all need to hang in there. We're going to make this. We're going to do this thing. Good things are going to be happening. So that's what I would have to say. I'm very, very optimistic for the future. And I know you don't win battles unless you fight battles. So that's fine. That's normal. We're going to fight battles. And you know what? We're going to do it with a smile. We're going to do it with joy in our heart. And we're going to do it in a way we're going to walk away satisfied knowing that we've accomplished something. And you're going to get to meet some of the greatest people that you've never met before, that you wish you'd have known them 10 years earlier. That's been my experience over the past 3 months. I'm new to this movement. I've only been in this movement for 3 months. People like that I think of, Catherine and some others, have been in it for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know where I was. Maybe longer, 10 years. And I apologize for not getting on board quicker, but I'm going to make up for it. So, yeah, we've got a lot of victories ahead of us. So keep your chin up and don't get discouraged.
Mitch, I'm echoing you. Did that help at all?
Yes.
Yeah, much better.
I just turned the mic off and turned it back on. It seemed to take the echo out. Mitch, I 100% agree with you. I mean, one of the things that happened, and I've been in a number of battles through my lifetime. So, in our practice, we consider it to be a government and corporate accountability practice anyway. So we have a mission. We've been on the mission a long time. And we have seen the deterioration of government. We've seen the deterioration and, the corruption of our institutions, the lack of ethics at almost every level. I think that, this is a culmination of a deterioration of our society that we're seeing. And this total disregard for the Constitution, laws, administrative processes, that deterioration has been happening, for a long time. We have been getting off the rails. We're just completely off the rails now. But it has, it has generated, people, their heads spinning right now. They're looking at it and they're realizing, look, we got to pay attention to these fundamental rights, these fundamental processes, these fundamental rules that help keep our nation strong and keep our people strong. And I think we're all coming back to that. I think people realize this has gotten out of hand, and I think we're going to rein this in. I agree with you. And the folks who are standing up and fighting, I mean, these people are getting really strong. And the ones that are fighting, and the other thing about it is those of us who understand about this deterioration, this is a welcoming, and to use a politically correct word, inclusive movement. If you've been vaccinated, you're certainly welcome anytime, because we know you're coming. You get that 3rd, 4th, 5th booster, you're going to come over here and say, what the heck's going on? At some point, you're going to wake up. I know the line in the sand that we've seen, is the parents, and with the kids and the mandates at the colleges. And if mandates come to elementary school, there's going to be hell to pay. The parents, they may get a vaccination to keep their job, but they don't want those kids touched. We have so many mothers that have called us about, what their kids are experiencing at college. So I'm very hopeful. We have very strong people. The COVID refugees are going to be hardworking, diligent, committed. We have 2 of them here at the office right now. And we are very, very happy to have those very highly qualified people come over here to do this work with us. And I think any hospital that will hire COVID refugees will be very pleased at the quality and intelligence that those people will bring to their hospital, or likewise to whatever business that anybody's running. So Mitch, I met you through this. Catherine, I met you through this. So uh, I really appreciate everything everybody's doing.
Well, this was really fun, unexpected that I got both of you tonight, and no, it was great. So if you guys ever want to come on again, you do bring a little bit of hope. Your recent involvement in this, you have no idea what quite the shockwave that both of you have introduced to the system. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs now for 20 months or whatever we're at now. Where are the lawyers? And now we have at least 2 lawyers who are out and in the public. And thank you so much for coming.
We'll come on anytime, and as things update, and you having a platform and all the people who watch and the way that this spreads is fantastic. But we'll come on, as things develop. We're going to have, and I felt like tonight, that's why I had called. I felt like there's so much happening with the healthcare communities and the contractors. We better get on and have a talk to reach people. So, because I can't possibly return all the calls that we're getting at this point. So we appreciate it, Catherine.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And I hope this was informative for you guys, too. Good night, everyone.
Good night.